Welcome to Tangent Ratio Part 3. So we practiced how to make the tangent ratio, which is opposite over adjacent. Then we learned how to solve for missing sides. Today we're going to learn how to solve for missing angles. So inverse tan is used to find missing angles. Let me show you what I mean. So I have here in this space written SOHCAHTOA. I just keep writing it so then you can familiarize with how to spell it. But as per usual, we're just going to focus on one of them today. We are just focusing on tan. So if you take the tangent of a certain angle, your ratio is opposite over adjacent. That we learned in the previous two lessons. It's up here. O means opposite, adjacent is denoted with the A. So now, let's say I wanted to solve for this angle. So the way you would do it is you would use inverse tan. So this -1 means inverse tan. It does not mean tan to the negative first power. It just means inverse tan. So inverse tan of opposite over adjacent is equal to the angle. So this usually is used to find an unknown angle. So we're going to use tan inverse today. Once you see it in action, you'll see it's not too hard. I am going to also teach you how to do it on the calculator. Let's go with our very first example. So for our first example, we have a triangle and they want us to find J. So this one, I'm going to circle it in red because I want to show you that I am going to focus on it. Over here, it's in red. All right, first step. What is the first thing you should always label? The first thing you should always label is your hypotenuse. So using the right angle, you can see that I am labeling my hypotenuse. It is KJ, hypotenuse. Notice it has no value, so probably not going to be helpful. All right, the next thing I'm going to label is far away from J. That KL is going to be known as opposite. After that, there's one more thing I have to label. I have to label the only side I haven't labeled, which is JL. So that must be adjacent. Okay? They want us to find angle J. So I'm going to put a question mark. So if they want you to find an angle, you must have some information that will help you. In this case, I have a 46 for opposite and a 93 for adjacent. And the one that is not that helpful is your hypotenuse. That's how you know out of SO, CA, and TOA, the one we will use is the one that does not have H for hypotenuse. Notice that this one has an H, so it's not going to be useful. This one also has an H, so it must be TOA. So I'm going to do tan of the angle J is equal to opposite over adjacent. What is the number for the opposite? It is here, it's 46. What is the number for the adjacent? It's right here, it's 93. Remember, when you are trying to solve the angle, so I'm going to say use inverse because you are trying to solve the angle. Then that means that your two choices are not switch or multiply. It's going to be inverse. So remember from the last one, I always said multiply or switch. In this case, it's neither because this is what's missing, not one of these this time. All right, so since I'm going to use the inverse, this is what it looks like. Tan inverse of 46 over 93 is equal to angle J. That's the whole purpose of tan inverse. It is to help you figure out the angle if you know everything else. And I do. I have a value for the opposite and a value for the adjacent. So I'm going to put this on the calculator for you, and I'm going to show you how to use the calculator. Okay, so let me do that now. I'm going to exit out. And I'm going to go to Desmos Scientific Calculator. If you do not have this, then you can always just Google Desmos Scientific Calculator, because if you just use Desmos, it's going to show you the graphing calculator. So what do you do first? You hit function, because now you'll see sine inverse, cosine inverse, tan inverse. This is the one we're using today. Then you can go back to main, and you'll see the one that you started with. What was the fraction I needed to put in there? I'm going to hit the fraction bar. The numerator was a 46. The denominator was a 93. Then I'm going to close parentheses. And you can see your answer is 26.31. I'm just going to call it rounding to 26. So let me go back here. And I am going to put that it is 26 degrees. So J is approximately 26 degrees. And that is your answer. That is how you solve for angles. So remember, we learned how to solve for a side or another side using multiplier switch. Today we're learning how to solve an angle. I am going to go on to the next question. Let's see if you understand. All right, so here is your first official example. I'm going to circle this in red so you know what we're trying to find. We are trying to find angle A right here. That means we have to label all of this based on A. Before I label everything based on A, let me identify my hypotenuse, even though we're probably not going to use it because it has no value to help us find the angle. Then from there, you go back to A and you go far away. That means this is your opposite, which means by process of elimination, this side right here, which is right next to the angle, is adjacent. So since I'm missing an angle, I need to actually have two values to try to find it. So I'm definitely going to use opposite, and I'm definitely going to use adjacent. So out of so, ka, and toa, I just keep writing this so you can start memorizing it. We're going to start using toa. So that is tan of A degrees, because that's what circles here, is equal to opposite, which is 6.8, and adjacent, which is 3.0, same thing as saying 3. I'm just going to put 3. So that is what I have so far, and I need to do the inverse. Why do I need to do the inverse? Because I am trying to find the angle. I'm trying to find this angle. So now I might be saying, is it multiply, switch, or inverse? That's what I might start saying in class. And you would say out of those three, it's definitely inverse because we're trying to find the angle. Multiply and switch is only if one of these is missing. So you have tan of A degrees, we still don't know how much it is, needs to be changed to this. Tan inverse, opposite over adjacent, is equal to A degrees. Notice the difference. We put everything we know here using the inverse so we can solve for our unknown. I'm going to do that on the calculator just to show you. There is one thing I did forget, so let me also show you that. So in the calculator, the one thing I did forget to teach you is this. Make sure this is in degree mode right here. before you start, everything we're going to do in our geometry class is in degree mode. You're not going to learn radian just yet. So make sure you do that. You can change it using this button, but I like it just the way you see the button right now where it's showing degrees. All right, so it is function. Notice in function you have sine, cosine, tangent, but I don't want regular tangent. I want tan inverse. Then you can hit main, and the fraction bar is over here. You're going to hit 6.8. Your denominator is going to be a 3. Then you just click out of there to make a parenthesis, and you can see that it's 66.19, so about 66.2, but I'm just going to call it 66 degrees. So here's the work we did. Sorry, I realized I did erase my stuff. So here, the work we had, and finally, when you put this whole thing in the calculator, you got approximately 66 degrees. That is your answer, rounded to the nearest whole number. I hope this is making sense to you. I'm going to go on to the next question. Here's example 2. They want us to find measure of angle R. Here's angle R. I'm going to circle it in red so you see that I'm doing it in red. This is what we're trying to find. And so first I'm going to highlight the right angle, make a little arrow with it. That is your hypotenuse. Sorry. Then you have your angle R far away. That is your opposite. Then you have the only other side we didn't label yet, which is QR. That is going to be your adjacent. In order to figure out an angle, you need to know the value of two sides. So we're definitely going to use 24 as adjacent, and we're definitely going to use 9, which is hypotenuse. So what would you use? Would you use SO, CA, or TOA? The answer is you would use TOA, because I just circled in a highlighter adjacent and hypotenuse. So we're going to use tan of R degrees is equal to opposite, which is 9 over 24. 9 because it's opposite, 24 because it's adjacent. Then at this point, I would ask you, multiply, switch, or inverse. The answer is inverse because you are trying to solve for this angle right here. So tan inverse of the two sides, opposite over adjacent, will give you the answer. That is what you're learning today. That is what I'm going to put in the calculator. So you can have this set up if you'd like. And every time you use your calculator, just make sure you're in degree mode. I'm going to go to the calculator. Sorry. Okay, so I'm going to go to the calculator. So I'm going to go to function. It is in degree mode. I'm going to go to tangent inverse. And inside, I'm going to go back to main, going to this fraction, and it's going to be 9 over 24. Okay, and you can see here that the answer is 20.556. I want to round to the nearest whole number, so this I am going to round to 21. So here's my work from before. And it was approximately 21 degrees when rounded to the nearest whole number. So 21 degrees would go right here. Hopefully that makes things clear for you. Now for example 3, I'm going to make it a little bit more difficult. All right, so for example 3, let's start out with the question that they have. They want you to find angle B. So if they want you to find angle B, I will highlight it in red so we know what we're doing. First step, you're going to go from the hypotenuse from the 90-degree angle. So go to the hypotenuse from the 90-degree angle to label it. Then go from B and go far away, and you're going to label that as your opposite. Then from B, the only other one that you haven't labeled that comes from B is your adjacent. In order to find angle B, because it's completely unknown, you need to have two values. I have a value for adjacent, it's 17, and I have a value for opposite, it's 16. So which one would you use out of SO, KA, and TOA if you're going to use the ones that are circled in a highlighter? Opposite and adjacent, that is TOA. Later, I am going to mix these kind of questions up, and you would have to ask yourself that. So I'm going to use tan of B degrees is equal to opposite, which is 16, over adjacent, which is 17. I'm going to ask, multiply, switch, or inverse. The answer is inverse because you're trying to find out the actual angle. So inverse, and inside tan of the inverse of tan, you're going to put what you know, which are opposite and adjacent, to get the angle. So it's the opposite of tangent. You're trying to get the angle by itself. Put this in the calculator, and we should get 43. Let's see if we can get 43. I'm going to erase this now. Let's go and to the calculator. So go to, make sure it's in degree mode. Go to function, then tan inverse. After that, you're going to do 16 as your numerator, 17 as your denominator, close the parenthesis, and you say that you get 43.26 when rounded to the nearest whole number is 43. So we did achieve the correct final answer. Give it a second. Okay, there you go. So we have 43 degrees is equal to B. Now, in order to make it a little bit more difficult, I would love for you guys to try to solve for angle A, which is also acute but different from B. So how would you solve for angle A? This is how you would do it. You would do the triangle sum theorem. You know that angle A plus angle B plus angle C equal 180. That is what we're going to do. So to get angle A, this is what you would have to do. It's angle A plus the 43 degrees we just found out plus the 90 degrees because it's a right triangle equals 180. 43 plus 90 degrees, sorry about that, is equal to 133. Then what would you do on both sides? You would subtract by 133. Once you did that, you would have the correct final answer for A. So angle A equals, what is 180 minus 133? 47 degrees. So that is how they might make it more complicated, where you have to solve for an angle. This angle down here is always going to be 90 because we cannot do trigonometry so far unless it's a 90. And the other angle we got by triangle sum theorem. If you have any questions, please don't hesitate to ask me. You can email me or tell me on Remind. This template was from SlidesGo. Thank you for watching.